Yeah. Yeah. Everyone get settled in. We'll be starting in 1 minute. 1 minute until blast off. Good morning, everyone. It is day 2 of Code4Lib. Somebody let Dre out of his cage early already. We're doomed. So, good morning to a rainy Philadelphia. Things like this happen a lot of the times. Plenty of things to cover in these first 15 minutes this morning. Let me check my notes. Let's see. Hello, good morning. Other niceties to you. I have to thank Kathy. That's going to make my autistic self be able to interact with people a lot more easily now. I'm going to say other niceties to you, whatever that means. So, got a couple of just requests and things to be aware of to start off with. So, if you're going to ask questions in the Slack to the presenters, please begin it with a capital Q and a colon. Makes it easier for our mic minders to be able to notice them. Also easier to just be able to find after you present to see if are there questions for me? Also, if you can figure out their Slack handle, directly at them so they can look back at it. And they go, oh, so many notifications, so cool. So just in terms of things that are happening later today, lightning talks are closed for today. There are no more spaces available. There will be spaces, the signups for tomorrow, which will be your last chance to present at this conference for this year, will be up by during the break at around 10:50. So please sign up, particularly newcomers. We love newcomers to present. I presented for on the third day lightning talk at my first Code4Lib in 2015 in Portland. Look at me now. I keep presenting. This is not a warning. It's good. I swear. Also, there are still a few pitch ideas for breakout sessions for this afternoon on the post-it board to the left of the registration desk. I saw that there were 2 slots open, but we could usually often fill in more as needed. If you have an idea that you want to talk about, go for it. Talk about vectors and matrices or just numbers. I like the number 17 for no good reason because it just was the number in my head. So also, if you want to help run this conference, which basically this is a volunteer conference, we need a timekeeper. Your job will be to sit up here and hold up a sign indicating to the speakers how many minutes they have left. You do not have to worry about chasing them off the stage. That's what the MCs get to do. But it is very helpful, simple thing to do, so please be a timekeeper. If you're displaying a poster, the easels will be set up in the ballroom foyer during the lunch break. So each poster presenter gets 1 easel. You can't use them all. Presenters, please get your posters up before the poster session at 3:45, but preferably as early as possible. Really probably try to do it during the breakout before in the break before the afternoon breakouts. Oh, now I have to display a page. So I am turning this off, and I need to announce our community support volunteers, our CSVs. So this morning on location are Eric Pettiplace and Caleb Durbin. Back there, some of them waved their hands. That was helpful. In terms of online, we have several great people working on those things. Oh, and I'll go ahead and mention that during this morning at 11, things will change over to Caleb and Natasha. For online support, and you can always turn to online even if you are here physically, this morning we have Bobby Fox. Thank you, Bobby. And then at 11 a.m. we'll switch over to Mike. So Bobby Fox and MJ Giarlo. What else do we have this morning? And I still have 10 minutes to vamp. Oh no. So actually now this is the big thing, and it's one of those where one of the things that makes Code4Lib exceptionally great is our diversity scholarship. We recognize that library, yes. We recognize that not everyone can attend a conference. They are expensive, hotels, travel, all of that. And we definitely want to make sure that we have good representation here. And one of the big things that I love about the diversity scholarships here is that it's not always, we look at what does it mean to be diverse in the Code4Lib community. Yes, librarianship is largely white. It is largely heteronormative, cisgender. Yeah, those last two are weird to me. Sorry, I can't do anything about my skin color. But and largely women. But it's recognized that, but of course if you do tech, you get a lot of men. But we also have diversity in terms of who can attend. We're not all coming from huge universities. We care about the public libraries. We care about small institutions. We want to make sure that those people can attend. So, and particularly want people who are starting out. And you just saw that someone at my, oh no, that's not being displayed, sorry. One of my coworkers just said, oh, I really like the new thing you implemented last week. So, yay me. I want to recognize our diversity scholarship recipients. Let's hold applause until I say I've said all their names. And I apologize if I butcher any names here. If you want to reach out to me and tell me how to pronounce it correctly, I will make sure I say it correctly on the stream. So first of all, Ying Hu, Jeff Gee, Natalie Koziar, Sarah Main, Annie Young, and Winifred Corshi. So please recognize them. Thank you for attending. And we're glad that we were able to help you get here. And also a big thank you to some of the people who helped sponsor the Diversity Scholarship this year, Developers for Diversity, Lehigh University Libraries, and generous individuals in the Code4Lib community for making these scholarships possible. We also need to recognize a few of our sponsors at the supporter level. Volvi Library at Villanova University, Project Reshare with the Boston Library Consortium, and an anonymous community supporter. So, who are you? Who? Tell us. We want to know who you are. So that's basically everything there. We will start again at 9:15. We have a few minutes and everything, so we'll hold out there unless other people have things they really need to talk about. Also, where's our timekeeper for this morning? Don't we have a sign up? Somebody want to be a timekeeper? We will train you real quick. Don't make me select someone randomly. Oh, it's John. Oh, see, you should have volunteered. Okay. We do have someone signed up, but they haven't shown up. If you are that person, please come to the front. Otherwise, we'll have to sick John on the presenters. And we have a different volunteer who I don't know who it is, but thank you very much. I love the braids. But we will just be silent for a few minutes so that we get started on a time so that the live stream people are aware. And please tell us if there are any live stream problems. Sorry to interrupt this brief pause, but we have one slot available for today's lightning talks. Who can rush out there the fastest and get together? Remember, you don't have to have slides for lightning talks. They help, but feel free to wing it because plenty of other people do that too. You can even dance. People have also talked about non-library things such as swordplay and pets and cats and more cats because we're librarians and we could start early, and I'm going to go ahead and get started setting up with the first person who is a remote presentation. So we'll reach out to Blake. Hopefully Blake is up in the Zoom meeting already. What happened to the Zoom meeting? Yeah. Let's go ahead and attempt to get started with Blake Carver from Lyricist talking about cybersecurity preparedness for library 2026 action plan. Blake, can you speak for us?
Good morning. Hello? Good morning.
We can hear you, so let's get going.
All right, thanks. Good morning, everybody. Hello from Buffalo. My name is Blake, and I'm a systems administrator here at Lyricist. Much of my job is taking care of our hosted archive space sites, and a big part of that is security these days. So let's talk about cybersecurity, IT security, whatever you want to call it. So I'm a bad guy. I find my way into your network. Maybe I got a username and password, and I find there's nothing in between me and the flag that I want to capture. So I can speed run across the network and do whatever I want and make bad things happen super fast. On a well-defended network on the right side here, we see all the things that you can do to get in my way and frustrate me and slow me down and make me go away. This is my job. I only have a certain number of days in the hours in the day. I have a quota to meet, and if you're in my way, I'm just going to go somewhere else and find somewhere that's not defended. So it's important to remember that we're going to talk about multi-factor authentication and hardware and software. The important part of all of this is the people, and even the best defenses that we make can be compromised by human error, poor habits, or lack of awareness. I wanted to touch on AI as it relates to cybersecurity just a bit at the beginning here. There's good news and bad news out there, I guess all over the place in the AI world, but especially when it comes to security stuff. Claude announced a couple weeks ago that they are making frontier cybersecurity capabilities available to us good guys. So that's good news for us on the Defender side. Some other good news. If you're an open source maintainer, I think there's probably a lot of us here. You can get 6 months free of Claude Max 20X. That's good. You have to be one of the cool kids with over 5,000 GitHub stars, which is way more than anything that I work with. It has. I thought for sure that Archive Space had a lot more stars than it actually did. Sorry, Archive Space team, we're not one of the cool kids. But if you're not one of the 5,000 star club, you could still ask nicely and see what they say. So this is really exciting. to be able to throw AI at our code base for nothing for at least a little while is helpful. On the more solidly bad news side, AI is accelerating the shift. They're using it to do the same thing that we are, but they're coming after us. And I thought this was interesting. CrowdStrike did a report, came out earlier this year. AI is now a dual threat. Obviously, it acts as a force multiplier for the attackers. But something that I didn't think about is it introduces a new attack surface. So they're using it to attack us, and they are also attacking it. Common cybersecurity threats, denial of service is a big one. Ransomware, of course, we see that all the time. Data breaches, social engineering, malware. I just like this graphic. I didn't choose the European Parliament for any particular reason. These lists tend to be pretty similar. The FBI keeps track of money losses that are reported to them. You can see investment scams, business email compromise, tech support scams, and data breaches are super expensive, costing billions and billions of dollars. Ransomware is much lower on this list than I thought it might be. I'm not quite sure why that is. Maybe it doesn't get reported as much. The newest cool trend in cybersecurity attackers is the click fix vulnerability. You can probably guess what this does. You tell someone who doesn't really exactly know what they're doing to paste something into the run dialog, and all of a sudden it fires up some interesting things on the computer. This is a really smart attack, and it's I first heard about it maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I'm really surprised that it took off as fast as it did. Microsoft says it's was about half of all observed attacks, and I assume it's gone up since then. And it's really good because ClickFix turns the user into the initial access vector. It's really smart. Ransomware, I think, makes big headlines more than anything else. Seattle, Toronto, the British Library got hit 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and they got hit really hard, and as far as I know, they're still recovering from that. It's important that we know that cybercrime isn't just a pimply-faced kid wearing a hoodie in his parents' basement. It's a huge industry worldwide. They are well-trained, they are organized, they are creative and innovative, and they're motivated by money and politics. So when it comes to ransomware in particular, this interesting little flowchart here, but it kind of does any other sort of attack, follows the same sort of thing. Maybe they started with phishing. They had a password for you. They had a cool exploit where something wasn't updated. Maybe an email had a malicious document. Someone opened it. It fired up malware, and then they get into our network. They set up the command and control center. They move around. They escalate their privileges, and then they start doing their work. They copy everything out of the network. They destroy the backups, and everything is encrypted. And if you don't have good backups somewhere, you end up having to pay. Technical root causes of things, it kind of goes the same whether it's ransomware or not. Usually it's an exploited vulnerability, maybe compromised credentials from a data breach, malicious email, or you got phished, and these go up and down over the years depending on what's working for the bad guys. So why are we at risk in our library? Well, we spend our time focusing on other things for the most part, unless we have a dedicated security staff, and I think that's probably only in the largest libraries. So we end up with old insecure stuff. And of course, for a lot of us, we invite the public into our library to use our technology, to use our network, and that's not exactly secure. Okay, so what's the plan? We're going to start with passwords, then updates and settings, then training and planning, and then if all those other things go wrong, we got to make sure we have good backups. So we're going to talk about backups a little bit. So let's start with passwords. We don't want to reuse our passwords, and we don't want to use weak passwords. Ideally, we want the password as long as we can possibly make it. That makes it as strong as possible. We don't want to reuse it on multiple sites, because if somebody gets your password in a data breach, then it doesn't matter how complicated or long it is, they're going to find their way in with it. So do not just use numbers in place of letters. Do use some letters, upper and lowercase. Do use some numbers, and do have something else in there, especially if you can get the square brackets or angle brackets or parentheses. And if you can, put some spaces in there. Those are not a common thing to find in a password. So we end up with 150 super long, impossible to remember passwords, which is great, but then that leaves us a few options. We can't remember them. So we're going to want to use a password manager. If you don't want to use the operating system of your choice's built-in thing, use a separate password manager, Bitwarden or 1Password or Dashlane. I use Bitwarden and 1Password. Tend to recommend you stay away from LastPass for the most part. They've made some questionable decisions lately. Every time you sign up for a new service, just assume that password will be stolen. So latest and greatest replacement ideas for passwords is called passkey. Those are stored locally on your device, resistant to phishing. They're supported on all the big websites, Google, Office 365, Amazon, you name it. The big sites have them. Basically, they're a little cryptographic key that's stored in your browser or password manager, and it replaces the password. MFA, 2FA, that is your second factor authentication. It could be a separate key. It's an app on your phone, or it's something that pops up on your watch or your phone. It turns a single password, a single point of failure, that is our password, into, it puts us behind who you are, the biometrics on your phone or your device, and then what you have, your device, and that app on it, or a separate key, and then what you know, your password. So it goes a long way into stopping the bad guys. So the second thing that we want to talk about, settings and software, regular software updates, the computers around the library, the network, security access and controls, and vendors. So just a little bit about each of those. We want to keep things automatically and systematically updated whenever possible. We want to make sure we know what we have and what's running on there. And ideally, we want to test our patches on a non-production environment. We don't want to just YOLO those, as tempting as that might be. When it comes to the computers around the library, on the public side, I would assume we're running reboot to restore, deep freeze, or something like that. Time limits and virtualize those things if you can. On the staff side, we talked about MFA, maybe using the biometrics built into Windows. I assume for the most part everybody's running Windows around the library. If you can, maybe run macOS or Linux. And remember that everybody should not just have administration rights. When it comes to the public and staff, both of the computers, we want to use allow listing when we can. Secure the browsers as much as possible, running ad blocking plugin or extension along with other security things. Maybe not just let the public PCs use USB devices. Disable anything that's not needed and uninstall the applications. Microsoft Windows 11 has a lot of built-in defense stuff. Make sure you know what that is about and enable that. And if you can, have some EDR on there, end detection and response. It's sort of like spicy antivirus, I guess. On our networks, you want to have at least two, public and staff, and ideally the staff network should be a little bit segmented as well. We want to have firewalls, intrusion detection and prevention systems when possible, and some sort of DNS filtering can be very helpful as well. We want to operate using the principle of least privilege. That is, everybody should be able to do their job, and that's about it. We want to regularly audit user accounts. We want to create separate accounts for administration versus daily tasks, and maybe break that down a little bit more for important systems, finance, that kind of stuff. Remember, admin rights are a vulnerability, not an enabler, which is a scary thing to say to someone who's used to working with admin rights and everything. So not your admin rights, everybody else's admin rights. When it comes to vendors, I am a vendor, and I use vendors. And we started seeing questions, security questions from the places that we host maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And now we see them regularly. And it's the kind of thing that could make me grumpy because everybody's asking us the same question again and again. But at this point now I welcome it because I like to be able to sort of review what we're doing security-wise regularly. And this forces us to do it. There's something called the HECVAT, the Higher Education Community Vendor Assessment Toolkit. that we get requested. So we fill this out once, and then we just update it when new versions come out. So it's important that you ask your vendors questions, understand how they secure things. So training is super important. I know we can't make everyone an expert, and we can't plan for everything, but we want to make sure that people understand what it means to do things the right way when it comes to security. We want to have solid policies that reinforce good security principles, that is, good security hygiene, and we want to have this new instinct, this paranoia in people, the way they look at things, that they understand that there are threats out there. And ideally, we want to do it for everybody at the library. That is, director, the board, everyone that works at the library. And we want to train phishing, how to browse the web safe, device and endpoint security, who to tell when something goes wrong, passwords, and new and trendy things that the attackers are using, like ClickFix. Planning and strategy, we want to develop our own plans. We want to clearly define the roles and make sure people know who does what, communication templates, step by step, and tabletop those things. And if all that stuff fails, we've got to make sure we have good backups, and we want at least 3 copies. So we want to store 2 locally, a little bit easy to get to for the first 2, and then 1 off a site, completely offline, air-gapped, can't get to them no matter what. And we want to make sure we back up not just our data, but our settings and the procedures and the call lists and all that stuff. You need to think about your backups as being accessible no matter what if you can't get into any of the PCs, and make sure everything's encrypted. So everybody, most places, I know we do, have some sort of cyber insurance, or their insurance covers the cybers, which is good. But then the first thing the bad guys go looking for when they get into your network is insurance. So they know how much to ask for, or at least where to start the negotiations. So ideally you want to start at rebuilding security and making your library more secure now, because you can work at your own pace within your own budgets. Maybe start with backups. That's the most important thing to have, because if everything else goes wrong, if you have backups, you can get back on your feet. Training is another good place to start, and then the hard part is all that hardening and planning and everything else that we covered. So remember, we want to empower our staff to spot trouble. This makes them turn from a vulnerability into your strongest detection tool. It's not just about the hardware, it's very much about the people as well. So that's all I have. Still have a few minutes for questions. You got questions? I got answers. There's my email if you want to email me any questions or thoughts.
We do have a few minutes, so normally we prefer remote talks to do the questions via Slack, but if we do have some, Mike Minder, please go for it.
I do see a question in the Slack channel. LastPass, somebody said LastPass is the preferred password manager. Can you share more about why they're a bad choice? I wouldn't say they're a bad choice. I would hesitantly say I don't recommend them. They've made some questionable decisions in the past 5 or 6 years. Everybody makes mistakes, but if they keep making the same mistake again and again, it's not something that should be acceptable.
Hi, Blake. It's Kerry Gordon, the streaming video committee in its entirety, I think.
Somebody said MFA, the accessibility of MFA or 2FA is important. You want to talk about, she mentioned that what's the duration you have for the passcode, and how long is the code, how much effort is copy or connect. Those are super good points. Accessibility is sort of the most basic thing that we all should be worrying about.
Blake, can you hear me?
Oh, yes. If somebody's talking to me on the mic, I can't hear anything. Sorry.
Okay, we tried to ask some questions, here locally, so let's just go ahead and move on to the next talk, which...
I'm not sure how long I should keep talking. Somebody said lots of copies, keep stuff safe. It's a good
Yeah.
Philosophy when it comes to backups. So
Just
we
a sec,
mentioned being
folks.
paranoid.
I'll get you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
It's not this one.
You can use either one.
Not this time. No, it's not one of those ones. It's the colors. Yeah, old maps. Yeah, great.
Sorry, what was that? Zoom is still open. Okay, I will close Zoom. Come on. Yeah. Oh, this. Yeah. Thank you, Zoom, for your great adherence to standard user interface expectations. We love you. Okay. Oh, old maps. Should be diff 12. Here. Okay, so we have Adam Cox with Old Maps for new apps, making and using georeferenced Sanborn maps at scale.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you very much. Very happy to be here. My first Code4Lib. Yeah, it's fantastic. Let's see, that one's not working. That one's working. So just a little about myself. I work now, just starting this year as a freelance geospatial software developer. Always worked in maps and GIS. And got into that through archaeology and historical applications of that kind of technology. I'm originally from Wisconsin, but I've lived in Louisiana for a while. So I was really excited to come up and spend some time in the snow here in Philadelphia. Didn't work. And I'll be talking today about a project that I developed through my master's at LSU. I did an MLIS and a geography dual degree. Great, so that is this web platform called oldinsurancemaps.net. And it's a crowdsourcing platform for georeferencing specifically these Sanborn maps, and that'll all make more sense in a minute here. It has nothing to do with insurance nowadays, which I realize is confusing in the name of the site. Here are just a few stats about the site. A lot of people have used it over the last few years. And I won't go through all of these. Maybe they won't even make sense. But a lot of, at this point, I think it's probably one of the largest publicly accessible collections of Sanborn maps that have been georeferenced. So you can find all kinds of content. You can kind of find it. That's not the strong point of the site, discovery. It's used by a number of different institutions, and here's a few of them. If you see yours here, thank you very much for your interest in the site. I also want to highlight these folks on the right that I listed here. A lot of people find it because they are interested, just kind of local history buffs and hobbyists interested in georeferencing these maps of their hometown. So a lot of people come to this site, and it provides a very low barrier to entry from an infrastructural point of view to doing this kind of digital work. Here's the software stack. It is a Django application, and I won't talk about any of the other pieces, but I would love to talk to you further if you are curious about them after this. And you can find the code on GitHub. It's all open source pieces. So getting back to the title of the talk and kind of the theme of the way I wanted to present this, here's what these Sanborn maps look like in the flesh. They are very large bound volumes. If you open them up, you see a lot of detail in these maps. I encourage you to go to your local library or university library just to see if they have some, because they are very fun to look at in person. They're hefty. A little bit more about the company is they were making these maps to be sold to fire insurance companies. So we're not an insurance company, but everything you would want to know if you're underwriting for that kind of risk is in these maps. And so they're really an unparalleled archive or kind of snapshot, many-year snapshot of, like I say here, 10,000 cities and towns and villages across North America. This idea of georeferencing is, I don't think it's too complex, really. You see on the left the scanned image, and then on the right, once it's been georeferenced with those little X's, those control points, now it's overlaid. And this is actually where we are right now here in the Marriott. Used to be a lot of brick buildings. But it becomes more complicated when you want to do it at scale, like I mentioned in the title here, just you have like 100 pages, how do you handle that work? And that was kind of what I wanted to focus a lot on, because this is what you want in the end, is you want like a nice mosaic that shows the whole city laid out. This is New Orleans. And getting to the second half of that title, so an idea of a new app. Using these maps. This is one example. There's a few different ones. Some you can see listed on the homepage of the site, but Open Historical Map is a fork of OpenStreetMap. It's a really fun project if you are interested in this sort of thing. And you can use these, as you can see, as a base layer to kind of digitize off of. So this one user, Pete Ziskoff, did an incredible job of digitizing all of this New Orleans content straight from those maps into Open Historical Map. That's one thing you can do. There's like, lots of other research applications. So if you've done any project like this, there's a lot of different steps. And I wasn't trying to set out and do one New Orleans focused project by any means. I wanted to really make something that fit into the middle here and made those middle transformational steps easier. So a little more context there is that the whole site pulls from the Library of Congress's very large and great digital collection of Sanborn maps. And then once they've been processed in old insurance maps like on the platform, so there's a lot of different export options and kind of, different formats you can pull the information out in. And so here's a few examples of places that are using the layers. So this all, like I mentioned, started through a master's program, and it's not the first web georeferencing site, or by any means, it's certainly not the first time people have georeferenced Sanborn maps at all, but I wanted to take this idea of the archival commons and kind of look at some conceptual ways to improve the whole process. This slide for references, I'll put the slides here in Zenodo, but I didn't do that yet. These are a couple of really important kind of conceptual references while I was making this site. I boiled it down to a few principles that I wanted to use as I was developing the whole sort of system. The first here, I showed layers, those geospatial layers that have been georeferenced, but really the data that gets stored is all of the kind of vector information, like the meta information needed to create those layers. So those images, those map outputs are disposable. That was kind of a first principle, was like storing the data in a really organized way. Then focusing on iterative and like small steps where different people can do different parts of the process and you don't have to sit down and work for hours to do something useful. And then finally, something that really I was forced to deal with was a lot of complexities in the Sanborn maps themselves. So I'll talk a little bit about those. So these maps have, like I showed before, lots of pages. So I organized the whole system around dealing with them like an atlas, and so you can see the steps that each page has to go through are kind of all presented at once. There's also a lot of situations where a map might need to be split into pieces because there's a lot of different pieces on the same page, or sometimes they're not, just one page. There's also different types of content in these maps, and one atlas might have like all the main content, I call it, but then also these zoom out sort of index maps, and then the skeleton maps, which don't have any annotation or colors in them. So I don't want to lose this information. I wanted to kind of organize around it. And then finally, of course, if you georeference all those maps, you end up with a lot of overlapping margins, and it's really messy. So this is the kind of three-step workflow that I developed, and it's worked really well, I think, for people. This first step is preparation, where you define the regions that you're going to be georeferencing individually, each one. And so you see on the left, the red is kind of the data that gets stored, is those division extents. then that georeferencing process where you actually create the control points, and then a final step where you mask, you kind of add these masks to all of the layers at once. It's really useful to do this all at once because you can snap the vertices together and make a very good continuous set of masks. So a full overview of that process, just kind of a diagram example. This is a single map. It has 3 different documents in it, and you can see here how it kind of, through the data model, gets split apart into these different pieces. Each one gets handled individually, and then it kind of comes together to make those final mosaics. And it's very kind of extensible in that this could, I think you can see this could be extended for 100 pages. It's all just a little bit more work, but structurally it works no problem. And then I also mentioned here just a list of the different kind of download formats and things that are available throughout the site. And that brings me to the workshop I'll be doing Thursday afternoon. So this whole system lends itself really well to everyone getting in a room together, and if you're at a brewery drinking beer, but if you're not, just hanging out in the university IT, you know, in your lab, and georeferencing maybe all the maps of one city or, you know, one volume together. So we've done these, and a number of different organizations have kind of done these georeference-a-thons. They're good at community events, and it's just really fun to hang out and look at old maps. So that's all for me. I think we're probably out of town, but thank you very much.
We're running a little early, so I'm willing to, if there are some questions for the speaker, let's go for it.
Hi, I love maps, and this was fantastic. Thank you so much. Sanborn maps, I'd heard of those. I did a quick look up on our institution, and we have a collection, but they're licensed from ProQuest. And so, like, what are the general? What are they all out of copyright? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I decided to pull from the Library of Congress digital collection because they digitized and they checked everything that was out of copyright. So I kind of triple checked with them and just went ham on their collection. There's a handful of different collections out there. ProQuest, FIMO, Fire Insurance Maps Online, is another great place where you can find these maps. I think if you get them through certain services, those services have some terms and conditions because you're accessing their scans of the maps. You know, copyright law, there's everything 95 years and older is, I think, public domain now. So a lot of Sanborn maps are fully public domain. A kind of funny quirk is that there's a window where they had the opportunity to renew copyright, but they didn't on a lot of maps from after that window. So on my site, and because on the Library of Congress, you'll find a lot of maps that are from the 50s. And that's because they just didn't renew their copyright, but they could have. And so now they're public domain. But yeah, it's a good topic.
Thank you very much. We shall go on to our next person, who is remote, with Aaron Paul. Come on, Zoom, open, please. Yes, we'll trust Princeton Zoom.
We're good for it.
Aaron, can we hear you?
Yeah.
Cool, thank you very much. Go ahead and get started. You have 15 minutes.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here. Today I'm going to be sharing how we tested out 7 different AI tools on an item from our collection that included a mixture of handwritten and typed text in like a tabular format. So, my name is Aaron Paul. I'm the digital curation librarian at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. It's a role I started in 2023. My work centers around building and managing our digital collections from acquisition to public accessibility. And increasingly, I've been incorporating more AI into my work to help improve our ability to extract metadata from collections materials. So last year, we designed and ran a pilot project testing out the use of AI on handwritten text. We chose an old accession logbook that contained a mixture of handwritten notes and typed text as our pilot material because we needed to extract the data into a more usable, searchable format for kind of staff usage. On this particular page, which is one example from that logbook, there is not very much handwriting, but it gives you a good idea of what we're working with and kind of the challenges that were presented with this particular item. Information from this logbook also had to remain confidential, which is why you see some of those redactions there. But our goal was to make this material more usable for staff by converting it into a searchable Excel file that can then be used as like a reference resource. If anyone has tried converting tables that are not super clear from a PDF to an Excel sheet, you know how difficult that process can be, especially if there's handwritten text involved anywhere on the page. So because of the kind of material that we chose, the test ended up transforming a little bit to a combination of working with scanned tabular data and HTR extraction. This document needed to remain confidential, so we couldn't use AI tools directly, but this is essentially what it would look like if we converted just from a PDF file to an Excel file directly. Essentially useless and would involve way more work to do anything with than just doing it by hand. And so the goal was to improve on this and create something that would actually save time and require a lot less manual input from staff to kind of, again, get it up to clean, usable condition. And so for this pilot project, we decided to test out 7 different HTR tools. The idea was to assess the strengths and weaknesses of each of those and find out what could give us the best results for this kind of mixed content document. We had no dedicated funding for this project, and so we were relying on free tools and free trial versions for this pilot project. The purpose wasn't fully to kind of pick a final system right away and go with it. It was more to compare the different options so that we could figure out what was best for this specific project and for future projects, even if that meant using different tools for different projects. So on the free side, we tested out Tesseract OCR, Easy OCR, Transcribus Lite, and Google Cloud Vision. And on the free trial side, we tested Abby FineReader, Amazon Tesseract, and Microsoft Azure Cognitive Services. This was, again, designed as a project for one of our student workers, with the student doing the bulk of the testing, documenting the results, and recommending where they thought, or what they thought the best tool was, with support from staff and guidance on kind of what was going on and keeping the project moving. So we focused on a few different areas, including overall accuracy in recognizing the text or handwriting, how well the structure of the table was preserved, and that was especially important for this item, and how well these tools might work for future projects with a particular focus on handwritten letters. To determine the accuracy rate, the student used word error rate calculations and character error rate calculations and found that Google Cloud Vision was the most accurate at 96.7%, followed by Abby at 92 and Tesseract at 90.5. Handwriting recognition was a major differentiator between the tools, with Google Cloud Vision outperforming all of the others in this area. And because of that, along with kind of other benefits, Google Cloud Vision ended up seeming to be the best option and what we ultimately chose to use for this specific project. It also allowed us to automate the process and calculate the word error rate and character error rate directly from the original PDF. And the biggest issue we found with the other tools was that they couldn't handle the structured content like tables and columns very well, and just didn't handle them well. To use Google Cloud Vision, our student worker developed a Python-based tool with a Tinker GUI that included performance metrics. The student we had working on this project was also in the process of getting their master's in computer science, which was really helpful because she was able to write the necessary script and continue to tweak it and adjust it to kind of explore different ways to increase the accuracy for this project. And so she ended up spending quite a bit of time on that script, again, tweaking it, making slight changes, just to see if there was a way to increase that final output, which was really helpful for this specific project, but may not be super practical for future projects, depending on the usage. Testing it out to get different, to essentially get the best results. So just as a reminder, this is what we were starting at, and this is what the final output ended up looking like. So it's pretty clearly much cleaner and much better, but it's still not perfect. It does give us a much better starting place than trying to copy the information line by hand. And so it is an improvement. And here's just a comparison again between that final output and the original document. And I did cut off the bottom to make it a little bit bigger, but a lot of the challenges and issues that we're seeing here are mostly due to issues coming from the original document, and just how it's aligned with challenges around text crossing between table lines, which is just really hard for a lot of different systems to adjust to and adapt to. And so when we completed this project, we did consider it to be a success and fully intended to repeat it on a collection of handwritten letters from World War I. But things have changed since that ended. The advancements in AI capabilities in this area are changing kind of that plan. So last month, as I was preparing for this presentation and just going back and playing around and testing out a few things, I ran that same test page through Microsoft Copilot with data protection and got this as an output. It's a lot cleaner, it's a lot more detailed, it's a lot better. It did a much better job of capturing those results, and it even interpreted that the quotation marks indicated that the content from the top column should be duplicated into further columns, and you can see that under source. On the original document, all of those were quoted, but it filled those in. And so this is also a test where no further action was taken to clean it up or to refine it. It was just pop it in, say I wanted it extracted as an Excel file, and this is what I got. So this could get cleaned up further with some more manipulation. As a second test, more focused on handwriting, I tried a page where really the only information I asked it to extract was that handwritten content. And again, this is a first pass result that worked fantastic. It interpreted the handwriting into clean text and extracted it very well. And this is something that was not possible 6 months ago. And I know that because I tried it 6 months ago. So this is just kind of showing how quickly this tech is improving and changing and kind of making that pilot project a little bit less useful for our purposes now, but it is what it is. I did do one final test on those handwritten letters from World War I that I mentioned earlier, and in this case it did not work, but this was also just a first pass attempt, and it may improve with further refinement of kind of how I enter that information. And so this technology is improving at a really rapid pace, and so it makes sense to continue to experiment and try different applications, so you never know where these, where or when or how these new capabilities are going to be available and to be beneficial to the work that you do. I recently got to work with Claude Code for a bit on scanned PDF tabular data, and the results from that have been pretty incredible, especially with refinement, being able to extract essentially everything and not having to modify the results in any way besides just QCing for accuracy. And so with that, I think I'm out of time, but there is some time for questions if anyone has any.
Given the challenges we had last time with asking questions in person or on site, let's just take the questions to Slack, please. So thank you very much, Aaron. Yeah. Thank you very much, Aaron. Hopefully everything worked out well. Now I'm going to attempt to close Zoom. I did it! So we have several talks now in person. We're supposed to have Spec Before Tech, delivering digital objects using archival principles with DataOCM. Oh good, somebody is coming up here, because otherwise I was going to grab the slides and just present for them, which could have been bad. Okay. Which one is yours?
Keep going down.
You didn't label it as group 4? Oh, that one?
No, sorry. That's the instructions.
Did you put it in the Dropbox? Okay. Any of these?
No. I put it in yesterday.
Hold on a sec. We're having upload issues here.
Did it go up or did you do it? I can make it bigly and go to the Google Slides.
You did put.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So we're going to be talking about delivering digital objects using archival principles with DataOCM. I'm Maureen Cressy Callahan. I'm at the University of Connecticut. This is my colleague Greg Weidman at Albany. And we're going to start off by saying we're going to start off by learning how to present. Okay. we're going to start off by saying we know that archives are weird, right? And part of the thing that makes us weird and sometimes a pain in the conversations is that we hate digital asset management systems. So let's talk a little bit about why. Essentially, all archives have a DAMS problem. So this is a typical example at University at Buffalo. It's also true at UConn. It's true everywhere I've worked, where there are these really amazing, beautiful digital library systems that everyone put a lot of work into, and they look really, really good, and they collect digitized stuff. And then we also have our finding aid site. And it is all for the same collections, and it is all different information, right? So when you go into that digital asset management system, you end up with a false sense of completeness. It's just the stuff that's been digitized. It does not give you context. It does not help you understand everything else in the collection, and it does not give the same archivist-provided context that a finding aid does. And so, and beyond this, it's pretty rare for repositories to have meaningful connections between those two systems, so that if you are in the digitized stuff, you understand how to get to the finding aid and how to get out of that cul-de-sac. This isn't just a technical problem, this is also an important epistemological problem. So this is a mock-up screenshot from the Connecticut Digital Archive, and so you can imagine a really great entry called Communist Propaganda in 1952, and I promise you there are really great mods fields down there, and you can see this digitized thing. Now, I want you to use your imagination and think about if it might be possible that, wait, okay, did I skip the example slide? Okay. Thank you. So this creates a problem of context collapse. So I want you to use your imagination and imagine a time in the past where there was paranoia about leftist movements and this idea that there are clues everywhere in the popular press about how leftists are the enemies of America. So I want you to imagine this file called Communist Propaganda, and it is the exact same information that exists in 3 different collections. These are sort of clippings and gray literature from mainstream sources. And in one case, let's pretend that this is the records from a congressman, and it's stuff from his constituents saying, this is communist propaganda out in the world, I want you to know about this, and so he's dutifully filed it in his constituent correspondence. Let's pretend then also there's one in another archival collections. And this is from the records of a local communist party, and it's their sort of like tongue-in-cheek, hey, look at all this communist propaganda in Time magazine, right? It's the same information, but it's really different context. And then third, I want you to imagine that these are the records of a judge who prosecuted Communist Party leaders under the Smith Act, and in his personal papers, there is a file called Communist Propaganda. Now that, as a historian would tell you, maybe there's sort of a preconceived bias for him. Thank you. Thanks. And so this is just to say that archival metadata is different, usually, than digital library metadata. The finding aid has much more going on than a MODS or a Dublin Core record. And in archival description, in archival theory, the thing we talk about is that metadata is evidence. It's not just the information, it's a lot more. It is about the records, but it's also about the people. Archival description describes people. It's about their activities. That's something that we make an affirmative effort to describe in archival description. And it's about the relationships between all of those. And this means that the place of an archival record or an archival person or a function within the network is really essential.
So we typically think of archival data having this tree structure, but really it's a graph. So the tree might start with collections and then have series and then files. But then really there is other access points that kind of interlink these trees. So they're kind of a series of interlinked trees all connected together. So a user can discover through a common creator agent or a function such as bookkeeping, which might give you access to a spreadsheet in one collection or a ledger in another collection from the same function. But it just has a much more complex structure than a typical library metadata. Think about archive data kind of like linked data, but without URIs, self-contained within your archive space, or however else you're managing your archival data. And it allows us to be incredibly efficient with our labor because we have a lot of stuff. And especially it's more stuff than we could ever describe individually. And so what archivists do is guide you to material in meaningful chunks and allow you to kind of understand them in large groups. And because it in theory models the universe, it can be partial at least. So in this example, as soon as we bring a collection in the door and give it an identifier at the collection level, it theoretically already has a schema and intellectual control. It's just kind of not documented or filled out yet. And this allows us as archivists to be really flexible to use our judgments to, based on the value of the materials, decide at what point to hand the material off to the user. So in some collections, we can have really detailed description, very similar to a Dublin Core or a MODS record, because it might be high value, very often utilized materials. But in other materials, maybe in the same collection, we're just delivering a user to a large grouping of things and letting them have at it. So it allows us to make these great choices, and it also allows us to use inheritance. So in typical library metadata, we might have a collection field that is the same string in every single metadata record, and then if that collection name ever changes, we have to update that string in every single metadata record. So what we use in archival data is inheritance. So in this example, we have a scope and content note that kind of inherits down and applies to all child nodes, except if it's overridden by a child node. So in this example, we have one series gets inherited by the scope and content note of the collection, and another one has its own. And that ends up with this, where part of it on the right side gets overridden, overrides the collection node. So it allows us to be really efficient in how we store our data as well. So going back to the dams problem, so we do need to put materials online, and oftentimes what we have access to is a digital asset management system. But when archivists get to a digital asset management system, they see, describe your individual object in a set of fields. With the quantities of our information, especially if we look to born digital materials, this is just simply unsustainable to the volume of materials we have. And it's also frustrating is that we already have enough description for discovery. If you think about digitization on request workflows, oftentimes a user has already discovered that material and asked for it to be digitized, and now we're entering additional metadata, which is frustrating. And it also has no context for understanding, no connection with the archival graph, and doesn't allow us to provide access in these large groupings. So what we've done is, during our IMLS-funded project to work with ArcLight, is developed Delivering Archives and Digital Objects, a conceptual model, which provides us a kind of a spec for how to handle this well. So in our use case in archives.albany.edu, we are using ArcLight to kind of funnel this data to, but our archival data is managed in archive space, and our digital objects are managed in IIIF. And the principle behind this is that we want to manage our archival description in digital objects without duplication, but not in one system. We want to maintain that connection between these components. And so what DataOCM really is a map from archives discovery systems to digital asset management systems using IIIF. And what it kind of defines is that digital objects are manifestations of archival components. So that means to archives, digital objects are just delivery nodes. It's just a way of fulfilling the materials. So if you are familiar with the Samvera community, if you think of the Portland Common Data Model, that means digital objects to archivists might just be the file set or the file version. They might carry technical metadata, but not descriptive metadata, at least in a perfect world. And it also defines the most basic fields needed to deliver a digital object. So that's up at datocm.github.io.
So then I want to give you the reveal. This is an instance of ArcLight, sort of this model that we've put out with DataOCM, where now you are clearly in the records of this Congress critter. You see everything else that he's been working on. You see the rest of his correspondence. You have much more information from the archivist. Here is the case where you can see that communist propaganda and you can look through the digital object. And in this case, the idea is that the digital object is being stored in a DAMS and then it's being pushed to ArcLight. So just to recap, we know that archives are weird. Okay, our preference is evidence over information. We love talking about this all the time, so please get us during the break and we'll talk more.
Thank you very much. Almost had to bring out the hook on that one, or ring the gong. And does anyone actually get those references? I'd be amazed. No one at work gets my, statement. So you are... Sure, yeah. This is the one you will be using. We have using static IIIF for digital scholarship. IIIF mentioned the Paul Thomas Annotated Project with Cameron Boucher and Alice McGrath at Bryn Mawr.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alice McGrath. I'm at Bryn Mawr College.
Hi, and I'm Cameron Boucher. I'm an Educational and Scholarly Technology Assistant at Bryn Mawr.
So our presentation is on using static IIIF for digital scholarship, the Paul Thomas Annotated Project. First of all, thank you for having us here. We're both newbies, so we're excited to be here.
Yeah, so a little bit about the project. Paul Thomas Annotated in the Margins is led by Jose Vergara from Bryn Mawr and Jennifer Alpert at Stanford. It's a work in progress, but it's a digital collection and research project devoted to the filmography of Paul Thomas Anderson. It will feature screenshots, annotated screenshots from all of PTA's 10 feature films to date, as well as original essays. All of the images in the collection have technical and thematic metadata that can be used to search and filter the collection. And we currently have 6 films available to browse, and 1, Punch Drunk Love, is annotated. The website for the project is built with Collection Builder using the CSV template. Notable customizations that we made include adding a filter, like a faceted filter functionality and new interface to the browse page. There's a visualization on the individual film pages that lets users see and kind of scrub through the whole film like you would in a YouTube video to see individual moments and select them. And we added a IIIF viewer that displays annotations. The design of the website is inspired by dark movie theaters and handwritten marginalia, and the color palette comes from the films. The website is live. If you want to check it out, at ptannotated.com. Here's what the homepage looks like. You can see there's screenshots from the films tiled there, and the dark background and the sort of handwritten notes design. Here's an example of the browse page, showcasing the filters applied. So, for example, the filters you can see applied in this screenshot would allow a user to look at all examples of all long shots or extreme long shots across all of the films where there's just one person in the frame. And here's what the film page visualizations look like with all of the screenshots from each film kind of lined up next to each other in order. And that little orange block is where the cursor is kind of highlighting bigger one of the screenshots. And finally, here's our, finally for the site demo part, here's what the IIIF viewer looks like. We use a Nona storyboard viewer, and it has a nice large section for you to read our very long annotations.
So just to talk a little bit about what our priorities were in choosing technologies for this project, we wanted to make sure that our images and data were interoperable using IIIF version 3.0 because the annotation data in 3.0 is more standard or more closely connected to the W3C open annotation data model. We wanted to create a static site if we possibly could. This is both because we believe in minimal computing principles and kind of, having a lower carbon footprint, but also because of the hosting technologies that are available to us for a project like this, which didn't have permanent funding, but temporary project funding. And then finally, we wanted to emphasize collaboration. So we wanted to make sure that as many as possible of our project workflows and tools would be accessible to all team members so that we wouldn't have a bottleneck for technologists. And then it was also important that the annotation process could happen through real-time and asynchronous collaboration, because we have a pretty big team, we have a bi-coastal team, so that was also important. So just many of you are probably familiar with IIIF, just a very quick overview. The International Image Interoperability Framework is a set of open APIs standards for accessing data and image derivatives in digital collections. It consists of two main components. There's the presentation API, which is a kind of standard that involves packaging a document as a manifest that has the metadata and also has URIs for individual images, one or more attached to the canvas, as well as annotation data if relevant. And then the image API features tiled image derivatives via URL formula that enables zooming and transformation, and it works with a whole bunch of different viewers, Mirador, Universal Viewer, there are many more. It's built into a lot of digital repository systems or digital asset management systems, and there are really great import features for digital scholarship tools like exhibit.so, all maps, eScriptorium, so many different things. By just using the manifest URL, you can kind of import in all the metadata and also all of the details, all of the image details. This is a quick overview of our project stack. For IIIF implementation, we tried a bunch of different tools and ultimately landed on using Tropify, which is a plugin for Tropy, to generate the derivatives and manifests. We had our students collecting metadata via spreadsheets, and then we were able to kind of bring that into Tropy along with the images and generate the manifests and everything like that. For our annotations, we used Microsoft Word for drafting and Live for encoding. And our front end, we used, as Cameron mentioned, the collection builder and the Anona storyboard viewer. So I'm going to skip over a little bit of this. Actually, do you want to talk about the IIIF?
Yeah, so, okay, sorry. So the IIIF viewer, we tried a bunch of different ones. We had a few requirements. It needed to be able to work with the presentation API version 3. It needed to work well with a serverless IIIF or a static IIIF implementation, and it needed to display annotations in a user-friendly and accessible interface. We tried Mirador, but we found that the window for annotations was pretty tiny. We tried Clover IIIF, which had a beautiful interface and was accessible, but it stopped working with our implementation after an update. We tried Glycerin, a Glycerin viewer, which also had a great UI for the annotations, but it was hard to customize in the ways that we needed. And I think another update also broke that one, but it's okay. And then finally we landed on Anona storyboard viewer, which we found to be more customizable and had a functional annotation UI.
So what we learned, a lot of this will be surprising to you, I'm sure, if you've ever worked with open source ecosystems like this. So first of all, IIIF is pretty complicated. We are both digital scholarships folks. We were new to IIIF when we started this project, but we were determined to use it. We were lucky enough to have funding to attend the IIIF 5-day online training, which is a fantastic resource. So some of the other challenges, image servers like Cantaloupe, which is one of the most common ones, would require maintenance and additional hosting costs for us. There are a lot of tools out there for small scale and collections and static implementations, but we often encountered cross-compatibility issues, i.e. not everything was standard with the API 3.0. Not everything could work well with level 0 or static implementation. There are a bunch of like bells and whistles for annotations that are not supported across different things. So we found, on the one hand, we had a really great community of developers who were responsive to some of our questions and issues. And there are new resources and tools emerging all the time. Finally, I can talk about this individually. The fancy new tool is not always the best solution for the team. Everything is collaborative. And that's how we landed on our using Word to draft the annotations, because our team was more comfortable being able to think about the entire film as a narrative rather than just focusing on individual images, and then using Live for encoding, which is a really fantastic tool. So thank you so much. Please get in touch. Cameron is our lead developer for this project. I am more of the kind of technical coordinator, I would suppose. This is our fantastic team who's been really great in terms of having multiple discussions about technologies and things like that. So yeah, so please get in touch and check out the site. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
And here's some resources if you want to learn more. Our slides are on Zenodo. I'm not sure if we have time for questions, probably not. 30 seconds? No? Okay.
Okay. Next speakers, please. So just making sure that we are chugging along. So who are we on now?
We are Colbert Williams, this one here.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, we are having Unveiling Boston Public Libraries. Public Library Hidden Collections using the WorldCat Metadata API. With Jay Colbert and Mike Williams. So I will switch over to...
Is there a button? Okay, you want to hold this one? Yeah. Check, check. Okay. I feel like Henry Rollins doing this. It's not.
Oh, thank you. Okay, ready? Good? Yeah, can you turn this down? Perfect, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Mike Williams from the Boston Public Library, and I am joined today by my colleague, Jay Colbert.
Hello, I'm Jay Colbert.
So we're here today to talk to you about a new software tool we've developed at BPL, SnappyCat, which has allowed us to harness the WorldCat Metadata API to open up our collections like never before. So, SnappyCat, we've got a great little epigram here from one of our lead testers. We're 1 week into January. We've already created 1,300 items through the API. It's absurd. I feel like I'm breaking some sort of rule, and I'm going to get into trouble. You won't get into trouble, but I'll let you know what SnappyCat can do. So, first of all, it lets you use the WorldCat Metadata API. Many of us get this as part of our cataloging and metadata subscription to OCLC, but there's not a clear pathway to using it. It also uses data in spreadsheets. We have spreadsheets galore. They were created by catalogers and non-catalogers, vendors. You've got legacy metadata. And with that spreadsheet data, you can construct some bulk command line searches. Many of you might be familiar with the interface in OCLC Connection. With those searches, you'll get the best matching record, I've put that into quotes for now, and get the OCLC numbers and some brief bibliographic metadata from there. All throughout, there is a clean web-based user interface for the search and the evaluation of the results, and you can get those MARC records through that platform. So, here's what we're going to talk about today. Why we built it and how we built it and tested it. What are some of the projects and workflows this enabled for us at BPL? How to use it, what it could mean for you if you want to use it, and how you can help us make it better.
So quick caveat, why API is not AI? Because of the marketing termification of AI, a lot of people who aren't in the tech field are hearing API, don't know what it means, and assume it's AI. But a core thing of SnappyCat is not about replacing human labor of catalogers. In fact, it often frees up time so that catalogers have more time for like more complex and original item-in-hand cataloging.
Okay, so what inspired us? Well, at its core, this is inspired by BookOp's easy-to-adapt Python interface for the WorldCat Metadata API. Some of you may have seen that at OCLC Dev Connect 2024. This tool's logic is the critical inspiration for how SnappyCat functions. But also at that same OCLC Dev Connect, the British Library demonstrated their experience using crowdsourced metadata from some catalog cards, searching these in bulk against OCLC, using transcribed data from humans, and then some AI-enabled OCR software. But also in terms of the design of SnappyCat, highly inspired by Matchmark. It's a Google Sheets add-on developed at Lehigh University Libraries originally. Bulk searches ISBNs and LCCNs. Some of you may have seen that in a previous Code4Lib publication. But also, similarly, Princeton's Excel Alma lookup tool and precursors to that I used previously at the University of Pennsylvania, where I also piloted some processes using web scraping and then Matchmark workflows.
So why we build this thing? Well, BPL is real old, right? And we've got about a century's worth of backlog. It's not necessarily that these materials have never been cataloged. It's just that all of that intellectual labor is trapped on shelf list and catalog cards that have not been digitized and put into our Polaris ILS. So a great thing about this tool is that it can take sort of that inventory level batch metadata and try to find already existing records in OCLC so that we have better intellectual control over our collections.
So here's how we built it. Well, when we were inspired by this idea, we figured how would this actually work as a tool? We modeled a sample iterative search workflow. So first would be a real high quality match. Find me this title and author and year and publisher and place in English cataloging with RDA description for print books only. And then if you didn't find that, just gradually relax your requirements until you find a record that meets your needs. Our own IT department, we told them what we wanted to do. They helped us connect with an external developer, gave them the documentation on the BookOps WorldCat Python wrapper, and the OCLC metadata API documentation. They built an app in Microsoft Power Apps. It did not meet our needs. They later moved that to React. You can see some full tech documentation on our GitHub later. We stress tested this thing with real data. We had several revisions of it. It gradually got better and more usable. Critically, we had to learn to speak programmer and they had to learn to speak librarian, which was a really interesting and productive discussion. Through a series of ongoing meetings with this developer, Systemize, we showed them how we use OCLC connection to model the real workflows that we want to abstract with SnappyCat, and also doing some testing of this in Postman.
So what did we learn doing this? Well, the existing documentation for the WorldCat metadata API is lacking in several ways. Either very unclear things like which version of the bibliographic indexes do you even use with the API, because connection is different than WorldShare and WorldCat Discovery, but also demonstrating how existing tools would operate at scale. There's not really a lot of documentation or examples of that. It kind of felt like having a bucket of Lego but no instruction book. And just figuring out as we went along. We also realized very quickly as the tech got better and better that it might be able to scale, but human beings don't. We have very much a limit on our time and attention span and energy.
So here's some of the things that we did with it. So with an eye towards this tool, it was being developed as we were planning out this other workflow. We had up to 12,000 uncatalogued items in our remote storage facility. Catalogers were not going there. It was just too much work. So we scoped out our metadata requirements with our third-party inventory specialists. We said, you know what, these items get their barcodes, get their call numbers, so we knew what they were, but also get some titles, get years and places of publication, and some other little details. So it was a very minimal metadata profile to get this work done quickly. And then when we had that data over a period of 3 weeks, Jay and I matched some 70% of this inventory record to what we'll call plausible OCLC records, right? Because we didn't see the books in hand. We found some similar records as well, and we used mark edit skills to enhance, edit, and publish these to OCLC, sort of a batch original cataloging. When nothing matched, we created some brief inventory level records just to have them in our system. And we just kept providing feedback to the developers because we were building the app as we were using it.
So with all those successes, why did searches fail? Well, people make typos, right? Especially when you're working with older materials and it might be harder to read fonts. Our inventory specialists may have like mistyped something in data collecting. Also, lack of specificity or just not enough info. For example, if a book had like a non-Latin script, we didn't ask them to try to guess what it was. It'd just be like title in Russian, that's not going to ping anything in any collection. Also, sometimes we would make mistakes when typing our query into SnappyCat, or in the earlier stages of the tool, when it wasn't as fast. Sometimes the API search would just time out depending on how large our file size was. And sometimes things just needed original cataloging. There were no existing records, especially this collection has a lot of bound widths. And so those are just going to be hard to search anyway, depending on which version of the title our inventory specialists recorded.
So here's some things that we were able to do now that we started knowing how to use the app. So we experimented with some at-scale workflows for cataloging our huge backlog of print government documents. For this, we mostly used OCLC's GN government document number index. We had a 97% success rate matching SUDOC classifications to target OCLC records. And then for the other 3%, we got them using a combo of its title, or just a few words of the title, and the material type of government document. We mentioned some batch original cataloging. Jay helped us pilot some universal derive workflows. So basically we found some near matches, right? They were records in non-English cataloging languages, or maybe they were microfilm or electronic records. So we took those records, exported some data. We enhanced them using our own local inventory data, as well as some Google Translate enhancements that Jay worked with in Google Sheets, and then we eventually posted these to OCLC using MarcEdit with a appropriately low level of encoding. We also processed and quality controlled some of our earlier inventory data that didn't even know this tool could exist. Now we had to pivot very quickly when our main book vendor, Baker & Taylor, collapsed last year, and we lost our entire shelf-ready processing, so we had no MARC records and nothing on books. So we are now doing some weekly searches of our ISBNs for books on order to fill in the gaps for that, and having some success there. And we'll get to a little bit more of this later, but we have plugged SnappyCat into what was already a large rare books retrospective conversion workflow with digitized shelfless cards, and currently making thousands of, again, plausible matches a month.
So how do you use it? Yay. All right. So you're going to prepare your data, Excel spreadsheet. Each column is going to be a different bibliographic index, and any data you might want to connect to existing like brief bib data, you just comment that out so that it can still stay connected. Then you search the API. Basically, if you were going to do a sort of command line search, or without using the advanced search builder and something like connection, you type out that kind of string, and it gets applied to every single row of data. Then you process the results. It will return every single part of the brief bib or the brief record that the API returns, and sort of matches it against what indexes you search. So if you're searching the ISBN, it will bring in the existing ISBNs next to it. So you can sort of skim and see like how accurate of a match is it, and unselect, reselect as you go. And then as you sort of move things to the this is correct category, you iterate your search and change what indexes you're searching as you go. Then you can export the results. Like I said, you can export all of the original data you uploaded with everything from all of the matching brief bibs in the same file. This is really great if you need to like inject data into existing records. But also you can then export every single matched MARC record from OCLC as MARC21 or MARC XML, just depending on what you're using. As we went along, we found some tips and tricks, especially for like data collection, simplifying place and publisher info. You know, don't put and, sons, or co, or whatever. Also using things like control numbers or barcodes to connect new data to existing data. Using asterisks for truncation. This has been really successful in our rare books workflow. And then testing sort of to see what kind of formats and subformats the API recognizes. Like print scores don't have a subformat like print book does, for example. So an example of that like weekly on order ISBN searching. So every single week we get about 1,000 to 2,000 of these on order records in Polaris that don't have an existing OCN. We then take these and just search the ISBN with some other sort of high quality control filters in SnappyCat. And we get about a weekly 30% match, which seems low, but these are mostly like new circulating fiction, or the existing records in OCLC are lower quality. And then that just gets repeated. This takes about an hour of staff time, and that's mainly just preparing data and making records. Otherwise, actually using the tool takes about 2 minutes. And this is sort of what a successful search looks like, including some searches, some rows that didn't find anything.
And being mindful of time, I'll move forward a little bit more quickly. Here's an example of how our rare books folks are taking transcribed. This is a shelf list card. They are taking this data, they are mapping it to spreadsheets. They are getting something like 1,000 to 1,500 matches per week. And then across January and February of this year, they created 13,000 new item records in our system, Polaris, using these matches.
So what does this mean for you? Oh, this is your slide. Go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what does this mean for us? So if you want to use SnappyCat, you've got talented catalogers who know how to use systems and know how to do searches. You can extend those core search skills in the book in hand cataloging with the object, and start learning how to abstract them using inference and limited data to accept or reject these best matches that OCLC gives to you. It really means more knowledge of data cleaning and manipulation skills in order to prepare the data, understand it, and how to merge it with other bits of data. We really want to underscore the role of catalogers' judgment and professional expertise here. You are the ones inputting the data, cleaning it, and you are the ones deciding what to use, what comes out of it. Catalogers are managers of metadata and also supervisors of process, right? They're not just folks who are typing up things they see in physical books. But it's not just catalogers. You can integrate non-cataloger data entry into these cataloging workflows, so you can encourage collaboration between departments or external partners.
It's open access, make it better. This is who we want to thank. You can look at it later. This is the stuff we were inspired by. You can read that later. And if you want us to do a demo or get in touch, here's our email addresses as well as the existing GitHub repo. Expect to see more documentation there. We're out of time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Next speakers, please. We have one talk left. Oh, wait a minute. Never mind. It's a remote talk. I have to get that set up. Can you hear us?
Okay.
Awesome. Please go ahead and start.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen all right? I'm gonna assume that's a yes. Okay. Let's see here. Sorry, I just lost one thing. Here we go. Okay, so welcome to our presentation from beta to release candidate, the Marriott Reparative Metadata Assessment Tool, affectionately called Marmot. We are so excited to get the opportunity to talk with you all today. We are all Code4Lib newbies, maybe except for myself, who went to Code4Lib in Portland, Oregon in 2014, and I don't know if that counts if it's over 10 years ago. So anyways, in our 15 minutes, we'll be focusing on the technical aspects of how we built the Marmot beta for our proof of concept tool, which allowed us to secure grant funding and supported the development of the very much improved Marmot release candidate that we will highlight today. I will briefly introduce Marmot, but I won't be demonstrating how to install it or use it. We will point you to our project website that hosts a wealth of information on how to do that, and I figure this crowd will know how to do that, and please contact us for a demo as well. Introductions. I am part of a very small and mighty team that's been working on Marmot. I'm Rachel Whitman. I'm the Metadata Strategies Librarian at the University of Utah's J. Willard Marriott Library, and I oversee the metadata for the digital collections and remediating for reparative purposes. Dr. Kaylee Alexander is the Data Research Librarian here at the Marriott and is the lead developer of the Marmot beta tool. Aiden DeBoer is our programming assistant whose skills have brought us to the release candidate phase of Marmot. Aiden is a data science major at the University of Utah and finishing his junior year. He actually is in midterms and has a midterm later today, so let's all wish him luck on that. And really quickly, just in case we need to connect the dots of why we're using a little marmot animal as our icon and mascot, Marmot Marmat pretty close in terms of words. Also considering the emotional toll that working with reparative metadata can cause, we seized upon using a cute animal as our mascot to add some levity to this area of work. Also, yellow-bellied marmots are commonly found in Utah's northern mountains and high meadows. So what is Marmot if you're unfamiliar? Marmot is a Python-based, open source, freely available tool that supports metadata practitioners in the bulk assessment of their metadata for harmful, outdated, and otherwise problematic language and subject headings. Marmot is a metadata schema agnostic tool. It doesn't matter if you're using a schema, Dublin Core, VRA, just as long as it's in a tabular CSV, TSV format. Metadata assessment is generated using pre-curated provided lexicons, or users can create your own lexicon. Marmot is operable on Windows, Macs, and Linux, supposedly. We have a project website that has a ton of information, marmotproject.org. So please go ahead and go there if you want to look at the installation, and those 3 provided lexicons are hosted here as well. So I think it's important that we define reparative metadata, especially in this context of the Marmot tool. I like to use this definition from the Inclusive Metadata Toolkit, but to boil this down, we are assessing existing metadata, whether it was created in the recent or distant past, and remediating it where needed to uphold inclusive metadata principles, which seeks to employ a wider range of perspectives that have been traditionally excluded from and silenced in descriptive practices in order to more accurately recognize, represent, and respect the breadth of human experiences. This is where we do a little bit of a content warning. So the 3 provided lexicons are really the heart of the reparative work with this tool. So you upload your metadata, then you get to upload a lexicon, and then you assess that metadata against the lexicon, and you get a report. So we have 3 provided lexicons. The reparative metadata lexicon contains some of the most offensive language or terms in the English language, so please take care when you open that lexicon and you look at it. It is full of harmful terms, as it's supposed to, and those are organized by category. There's an LCSH lexicon, that's for your subject element, that includes Library of Congress changed and canceled headings over the past few years, but also the Cataloging Lab's problematic LCSH list as well. And then we have a sensitive content lexicon that's designed to flag potentially, imagery that you may want to put a sensitive content viewer or remove from being online. And it should be said that all of these are to be used directionally. Not everything you'll want to take action on is definitely up to organizations' guidelines and principles, and these are to serve as a starting point to assess collections. And this is sort of what it'll look like when you upload your metadata, you upload your lexicon, you'll get another spreadsheet back that will identify the term, category, the metadata element, and the original context that that term from the lexicon was flagged on, which allows for granular and category-based assessment and review. So just to talk about the Marmot project a little and where we're at and the timeline of it. In October 2024, the Marmot beta launched at the DLF forum alongside the Inclusive Metadata Toolkit. Even though it's a rudimentary tool that Kaylee will get into next, we had a fantastic feedback, and we could see the impact of this tool, so we were able to get some grant funding, a $10,000 Marriott Library Jumpstart grant. We were able to hire Aiden and make a ton of improvements thanks to Aiden and that $10,000 grant, which brings us to what we're here today, and that's what we're going to go over next.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about the beta version of Marmot, and you'll forgive any weird noises. I'm parental leave, and I have a fussy 4-month-old on my lap. So Marmot beta, again, was this very rudimentary tool that we unveiled in towards the end of 2024. You can see it's very simple looking, but it allowed you to do the basic things. So we thought through the tasks of a librarian. What do you want to do? You want to look up a term, you want to check for where that appears in your metadata, and then you possibly want to remove it. So the tool kind of functions like a giant VLOOKUP in Excel, but we wanted to code it to do this in bulk and with no coding experience at that point. I turned to ChatGPT. So we modeled the first version completely in ChatGPT, and it kind of did the basics, but there was a lot missing. Next. So one thing I really want to stress is that Marmot is not an AI tool. We're really stressing, as many other people in the session stress, the importance of that human interaction and using the knowledge and expertise of metadata practitioners. We only used it to create the beta version of the tool as a proof of concept and to get things moving along. We learned a lot through that process. It was an ideas exchange. It was a dialogue with ChatGPT. We learned very quickly on you couldn't just ask it to produce a tool. You had to do this iteratively and focus on making little tweaks and improvements along the way based on our experience as librarians and what we wanted the thing to do. It also allowed us to have this kind of ongoing documentation. So when I inevitably broke the tool, I was able to go back pretty easily and fix that. But of course, there were significant limitations. This was ChatGPT 3 at the point. It's gotten a lot better, obviously. I didn't know so much about Python, so it was, a learning experience for me as well in prompt engineering and then tweaking code iteratively as well. Next. And again, we want to stress this kind of human in the loop approach to coding the tool. It was human in the loop in terms of me developing it in collaboration with ChatGPT, but also we see human in the loop as really essential for working through the metadata itself. Marmot will not change the terms for you. It will not tell you exactly what you need to change a term to. We really want to focus on human review, human expertise to go in and say, okay, this term is not okay in this context, but it is perhaps okay in this one, or maybe it's a title element and you can't actually change the term. So that remediation process still really very much needs to happen within the repository itself and using the professionals who know what they're doing when they're looking at these terms. So once we had our proof of concept, people were really excited about it. We got excited because our library offered some jumpstart funding for us, and we were able to apply and get $10,000 from the J. Willard Marriott Library to use over the course of 2025. With just $10,000, we were able to hire Aiden, who's going to talk a little bit more about his process and involvement in the project, to improve our user interface, the performance of the tool, and really take it up to a professional standard that Rachel and I couldn't do ourselves or with ChatGPT. So he made these huge improvements with a really small internal grant, which allowed us to take the project further. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Aiden to talk a little bit about the work that he did on Marmot.
Sweet. Thanks, Kaylee. Hi, everybody. My name's Aiden. I'm super excited to be able to talk to you today about the process that I kind of took approaching this as an undergrad, working on a project that I've never really done before, right? So I was super excited. When I jumped into Marmot, I found that the initial code base didn't fully align with the workflows that our metadata librarians need. So it was originally quite limited in its functionality. It had limited usability, it lacked polish, and it wasn't super user-friendly. And that's not to discredit any of the work they've done, but it had some room for improvement. If you want to go next. To tackle these problems, I outlined a few primary goals for my changes. I wanted to improve usability across all platforms. I needed to drastically enhance performance and responsiveness, and my aim was to provide a more professional user experience while expanding our file support and flexibility. If you want to go next. And all of that resulted in what you can see on screen now, the current version of what we got for Marmot. If you want to go next. So to make the application more robust, I restructured the tool using a model view controller or MVC architecture, which I'm sure all of you are very familiar with. Studying data science, I knew pandas was exactly what we were going to need. So for the model, I used pandas as in their data frames for the heavy lifting of the core lexicon matching logic and for the large tabular data sets that you have to deal with. And for the view, I built a responsive cross-platform PyQt6 GUI that abstracts all those complex operations away from the user and the controllers, right? Just logic routing. So, next. Upgrading with the GUI of PyQt6 allowed us to finally build a true cross-platform tool, which enabled Mac operability. We integrated a dark mode for better accessibility and added file location settings to give users more control over their outputs. Having some prior experience with Qt definitely kind of pushed me down this route towards using Qt as opposed to what was initially used with Tincture, and I think it looks a little bit more professional with Qt as opposed to that, and easier to work with. So if we go next. One of the updates I'm most proud of is our performance enhancements. I added multi-threading and parallel processing capabilities using Qthread and concurrent features. This entirely prevented the application from freezing up during heavy processing tasks, which could happen before. And because of this, Marmot now works about 10 to 13 times faster than before. And again, that is subject to your machine, right? Your CPU, how many cores you have. But for me, it was 10 to 13 times faster. So, I mean, you should see an improvement, but it might not be that number specifically, right? We also integrated a progress bar so users can actively track their task completion. Go next. Alongside performance, we heavily focused on user experience and professionalization. We consulted with accessibility teams to implement best accessibility user experience practices. From there, we made the overall workflows much clearer and more intuitive, bringing the design much closer to professional application standards. Next. We also expanded our file support to meet the diverse needs of different repositories. So we successfully added support for both CSV and TSV file types, also export for CSV and TSV. This greatly increases flexibility for users bringing in their own datasets. I'll also mention that XML support is currently a work in progress, but due to the schema not being tabular, it's a little harder to integrate with the model we have right now. So that is still a work in progress there. You want to go next? Throughout my time working on Marmot, a lot with AI has changed. When I started working on the project over a year ago, I rarely utilized AI to help me write my code. However, towards the latter end of Marmot's development, I have greatly increased the amount of AI I use in my workflow. This is primarily due to the shifting attitude towards utilizing generative AI. In my university education, AI has been very hit or miss. Some classes endorse using AI to solve the problems, almost expecting you to leverage it. However, other classes consider utilizing generative AI as academic misconduct, and you could be greatly punished for using it. So it's kind of, again, hit or miss. However, in my last few semesters, the move towards a more accepting view of AI has been the dominant perspective. So, of course, I've augmented more AI coding into my own workflow. And, I mean, regardless of what you think, it is starting to become the industry standard. So working on Marmot has provided me an opportunity to get some experience leveraging AI in a software development flow. And for me personally, it has improved my productivity and workflow. Though, again, it is a double-edged sword, right? AI, we all know generative AI can spit out some garbage when it's when you prompt it. So you got to be very careful when you use it, know what you're doing, and really trying to understand the code it's producing, right? So that's something I've learned with my experience using it, and it could be beneficial, but it could also be detrimental if you're not careful, right? We go next. To wrap up my section, I just want to share a few lessons I've learned and where the architecture could head in the future for this tool. I think on the back end, Python is still a great option. Pandas does a great job with that heavy data manipulation for the assessment that it needs to do. However, I mean, again, I am an undergrad, so I'm still learning, and I think that the front end I would have redone differently. I would have used a JS-based web framework like React or Vue for that front end, but on the back end, I would keep Python. And yeah, that's kind of my work on this project. It's been a great learning experience, and I'm super grateful for the opportunity to have spoken here today. So I'll hand it back to Kaylee.
Go back a little bit. Yeah, so just to wrap up, we have a couple future directions that we're looking at. We don't want this to be a project that kind of dies with us and works in a vacuum. We want it to be something that...
Sorry, you are at time.
Okay.
Yeah. So thank you very much. We are on break. Two important things. Sign up for Lightning Talks is available out near the registration desk. And if you are doing a Lightning Talk and you have slides, they need to be on this machine. If you're using Google Slides, you need to have that open in the browser. Otherwise, I'm going to count your time typing it in as part of your speak time. So enjoy the break. We will be back at 11:10. It's time, folks. Let's get settled in. Lightning Talk speakers, please move your way to the front as best you can. And let's see, who is our first guinea pig? Oh, it is Christy Bailey Tomasek. Let me find your slides. Yeah. Didn't I open yours? Wait a minute, were you PDF? There we
Here
are.
I am.
Yeah.
Did the timer start yet? Did the timer start yet?
Yes, go ahead and start.
Okay, hello. Today I'm going to talk about working on a challenge when you don't have the tools to do so. And in fact, no tools probably exist, so you have to improvise. I consider this a form of what I call embracing the jank. A little bit about myself. My name is Christy Bailey Tomachek, and I am the AV Access Services Librarian at the Beinecke Library, part of Yale University. My job involves being the product owner of Aviary, which is the AV access system used at several Yale libraries and museums. This includes managing the Beinecke's media and associated transcripts. One of the department's units, whatever, within the Beinecke is the Fortunate Video Archive for Holocaust Testimonies, which I'm particularly familiar with because I was previously their archivist. And this talk is going to focus on a subset of their collection. We have been working on transcribing our collection of over 4,500 testimonies. Until very recently, we have been using a bunch of vendor products, including 3Play, Trint, and Sonics. This has its challenges because our testimonies are in 20 languages, and about 17 of these languages are covered by at least one of these listed vendors. However, Ladino is not one of them. We have assumed that the only way to handle Ladino is through purely manual transcription, but there may be speech-to-text ways to at least make it a little easier. So it was time for me to embrace the jank. If you were at Code4Lib last year, or don't know me from if you weren't at Code4Lib last year, or don't know me from the hellhole that was Twitter, or haven't met my coworkers, you may be confused about this embracing the jank business. I jokingly yet proudly refer to myself as the metadata janktress. It's because I spend a lot of time solving metadata and system-related problems with a little bit of knowledge's dangerous levels of proficiency in programmatic solutions. I will solve the problems, but it may not be in a straightforward way, that is, in a janky manner. My motto is, screw it, it works. The important part is that the work gets done without holding things up for perfection. As it turns out, the screw it, it works, embracing the jank approach was very helpful for working through these Ladino transcripts. So for those who don't know what Ladino is, Ladino, which is also known as Judeo-Spanish, is a Jewish diasporic language with roots in the Sephardic communities around the Mediterranean, such as Greece, the Balkans, the Iberian Peninsula, and Northern Africa. It is a derivative of Old Castilian Spanish. Unfortunately, it is very much an endangered moribund language. Due to anti-Semitism and local nationalist movements before World War II, its use was already starting to decline in the early 20th century, and the Holocaust then accelerated its destruction. So there are only an estimated 60,000 to 300,000 Ladino speakers left today. There we go. Because of the rarity of Ladino materials, Fortunoff was invested in getting them transcribed as we saw their value as language resource. Oh, wow. Already? However, we didn't know of any automated transcription solution that could do that for us. So we partnered with Ladino language scholars at the University of Thessaloniki to manually transcribe the collection. We didn't want it to be a high bar of entry for the scholars, and to be transparent, this is before I knew about solutions like Amara. So they just created the documents without timestamps, which makes them not very useful for aviary transcription display. However, I had a weird train of thought. Like I said, Ladino is a derivative of Old Spanish. And Sonics has an automated alignment feature, also known as forced alignment, where you can put in plain text transcripts without timestamps alongside the media into the platform, and it time synchronizes the text. Spanish is one of the languages supported by Sonics. Could this possibly work for Ladino? It did! So now we can make our Ladino transcripts properly available in Aviary 1. Thank you. So this Ladino Spanish connection I made with Sonic's tool influenced our most recent testing with OpenAI Whisper. Yes, this was before they decided supporting fascism is cool. I'm so sorry. William Mattingly, the cultural heritage IT developer at Yale, transcribed the entire collection using Whisper with the idea that not only would we get a completed corpus to put online, he could use it to test and train local Whisper models against our already completed transcripts as ground truths. He had heard about my Sonic's alignment experiments in an AI for LAM speech-to-text working group meeting, so he decided to put the Ladino transcripts through Whisper's Spanish model. So we're hopefully presenting on this, so I'm not going to get into detail at another conference, but the Ladino output, while the word error rate was very high, it was in excess of 80%, high is bad, semantically it was mostly correct. The word error rate was because of differences between Spanish and Ladino orthography. We use Latin characters instead of Hebrew or Soletreo or Rashi script. So you're going to see differences in how they transliterate. And this could be the groundwork for a devoted Ladino transcription model. So embrace the jank. Cool stuff might happen. Thank you.
Thank you. We have our next speaker. Please come up. Please, speakers, make sure you're near the front. And, okay, you were the shoe?
No, I think I'm second. I'm to be trails.pptx. It's one of the files.
Yeah.
The folder. Keep going.
This one? No. Okay, why did these suddenly all change?
Well, it wasn't a folder before. And if this is somebody's talk that wants to go now, that's why.
Sorry about this, folks.
Oh, right there.
Yeah.
Right there. All right. And then I'm going to turn to speaker view. What?
No speaker view, sorry.
I was told there was. There we go. You were lied to. Okay. Well, I've got it now. So there. All right. Thank you. I'm really glad to be here. And I'm really glad that we're here in Philly. If you have a chance, it's worth walking a few blocks from here to 6th and Market Street, where you can find a reconstructed frame of the President's House, which is the home of George Washington during his presidency, when Philadelphia was the capital of the United States. An exhibit went up there some years ago telling the story of the 9 people in this household who were enslaved there. Now, not long ago, the Trump administration ordered the exhibit be removed, and you can see here one of the spaces where its panels were taken down. Here's one of the panels. It puts the story of Washington's slaves in the context of where they lived and the chronology of their bondage and freedom and that of their comrades as well. Now, a judge recently did order that the exhibit be restored, and it's an ongoing court battle. So the National Park Service has put back some of the panels while others are still missing. In some of the gaps, the public have put up their own signs, and some of which you can see in this picture here, testifying to what's been suppressed. And if you go there, you might even find somebody acting as an unofficial tour guide, telling visitors stories similar to the ones that used to be on the official signs. Now, we know what those signs said. The folks at the Data Rescue Project, yeah, props to them, collected photos of them before they came down, and you can view them online. But the importance of the exhibit is not just what it says, but where it says it. It's important that it's embedded in a particular place so that people who come visit what's sometimes called the Cradle of Liberty also find out that there's a story about the people deprived of liberty here and about how they won their freedom. Now, while we're at Code4Lib, we're also embedded in a rich environment filled with history and culture. Just on your walk from here to the President's House, you might pass by the Museum of the American Revolution or the Science History Institute, the American Philosophical Society, the Weitzman National Museum of American Jewish History, and of course, the Liberty Bell and Independence Hall. There's all kinds of trails of knowledge you can follow there, and it's even better when you have a guide to those trails. So what do I mean by a trail? A trail is a designated, visible path designed to help its users appreciate and understand the environment that it goes through. Now, you may have hiked some of these sometimes, or you may have gone on some more explicitly interpretive trails, like the Freedom Trail in Boston. Our libraries are also rich environments of history and culture. And we provide ways for users to search them, but do we provide trails for them? Well, we kind of do. We have exhibits, like this one from the Library Company of Philadelphia, providing a guided path through a collection of 19th century works on mental illness. And people who teach courses like this one at Yale create instructional trails in their syllabus reading lists. And books that our scholars write, like this one on the history of the civil rights movement, show an implicit trail of events they cover in their tables of contents. But while these trails all refer to resources in our libraries, they're not embedded in libraries in the same way as the exhibits and trails that I've shown in Philadelphia or Boston. But they could be. You can think of it as an extension of browsing. Now, last time Code4Lib was here in Philly, I showed how a catalog that I maintain lets you browse subjects using relationships in the Library of Congress subject headings. So you can explore various related topics, say around who can start a war. And more recently, I've added features for finding out more about people and their relationships using linked data from places like id.loc.gov and Wikidata. But we don't have to stop with what's in authority files or in generic library descriptions. Maybe in the future, when you're visiting Martha Washington's page, you'll find a trail that goes through it. Like a trail telling the story of Ona Judge, one of the African Americans who Martha claimed ownership over and who escaped from the house at 6th and Market right here in Philadelphia and stayed free the rest of her life. What will the trail telling her story look like? I'm not quite sure, but I have some ideas that I'm hoping to try implementing. Not so that I can tell the story, but that I can represent the story from others who can tell it better than I can. And so that people visiting my site can find and follow that story with all of its richness, just as they once could when they visited the president's house in Philadelphia, and as I hope they soon can do here again. So if that interests you, I'd love to talk more with you. I'll hear the rest of the conference, and here's where you can contact me afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, hello. I'm Alessandra Vertries. I work as a software engineer for the New York Public Library, but I am not talking about my work today. But for those who are interested, the last 3 years of my work has been dedicated to rewriting digital collections in Next.js using our in-house design system and globally implementing AAAF in the presentation API. But outside of work, I'm an artist, and there's been this really interesting symbiotic relationship between my 6 years at NYPL and my art practice that I'm just coming back from a 2-week-long residency in Mexico City, and this is top of mind, and I learned some cool stuff and wanted to share it with you guys. So the core of my practice is multisensory preservation through food and sound and genealogy research. I'm starting with a photo of my dad's family archive of photos from my childhood. I grew up on a farm in upstate New York. And I don't know if you guys can see the captions, but one of my favorite ones is roadkill and memorial. My parents are artists. My dad is an IT professional. I grew up not just with a garden, but with livestock. It was kind of a vanity project of my mom's. I'll get to that later. But the photos that I decided to select from the archives is my dad teaching me how to code, me teaching my brother how to code, and then me with 3 sheep that I bottle fed when I was a kid. But my mom's an artist, and she has this evolving practice of being a studio practices sculptor, bronze work, but she evolved it to land work and gardening, where she brought back Lenape white corn and introduced permaculture, and then she did some research in the Chinampas in Xochimilco in Mexico City, which I got to visit while I was there for the 2nd time, and then waffle gardens in New Mexico. So these indigenous farming practices that are tied to extreme climates. This is relevant to my mom and I because our family is from Mexico, and that's where the genealogy research is. So on the sound side, thank you to Library of Congress, California Sound Archive, Smithsonian, for documenting a bunch of songs from the Mexican Revolution that were recorded on wax cylinders and lacquer discs, and then translating them and researching the artists, because I read that the past 2 weeks. And then a piece that I did was taking these like recordings from family conversations about my grandmother and her family and turning it into this like discovery piece where it's a generative sound installation that kind of parses through 9 hours of sound recordings. I included a snippet, but I don't have enough time to play it, but it was really cool and I had it up in December. And then the last part of my like project, side quest, whatever, how this manifests is this project called Mestiza Creamery, where I'm using dairy from a farm near where I grew up and indigenous ingredients, so pepitas and pine nuts. I don't know if people know this, but there are pine nuts that are native to the Americas. And using them to make plant-based ice cream, but also just dairy versions that are inspired by my roots. Vanilla and chocolate are indigenous, very fun. And then these are photos from my trip. So the phonoteca is the photo on the right, and I got to listen to some really cool digitized material of like Mayan 80s synth pop, very cool. And then the photo on the left is me at the archives. You can't search anything in either locations outside of being physically present, but fun fact, while I was at the archives, there was an earthquake alarm, so we had to evacuate and do a drill. But anyway, that's my presentation. I'm done early. If anyone has any questions on NYPL digital collections, digitizing, or my work, just find me. I didn't add a slide with my contact information because I built these at like midnight last night.
How many of us were just staring at those old computer models and just going, oh, that looks so cool? Do you have slides? It's Michael Allen and Seamus Neron now.
I was on the sheet. Well, whatever.
Okay. We have somehow snubbed Andromeda. We are doomed. Yeah. So, Code4Lib Southeast.
It's online. It's under the browsers.
Yeah, this one. Why are they? This shoe?
No. It should be on the browser, maybe? It's on the web browser.
There. Okay, there we are.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael Allen, and with me is Seamus Neron, not Noron, and we're here to give a update to Code4Lib Southeast this year. The update being, it is happening again. The University of Georgia is going to be hosting Code4Lib Southeast this year, thanks to the successful hosting from Emory University last year. They did a great job of doing that, and so we wanted to keep on with the tradition. Now, I kind of spoiled it, but where exactly is it going to be? It's going to be at the University of Georgia Special Collections Library in Athens, Georgia, also known as the Classic City. And do not get it confused with Athens, Greece, like a lot of people do in our local subreddit. Why Athens, Georgia? Well, I may be biased, but it's a beautiful city. We're apparently really good at football. We just keep winning SEC championships, so that's kind of cool. People like to tell you about it all the time. It's an incredible music scene, the birthplace of REM and the B-52s. It's pretty rad. Beautiful campus right next to downtown is also available, which will also be close to where the conference is. Beautiful weather, pretty much 99% of the time. Otherwise, we're closed for our day because we have 1 inch of snow, but that's another thing. And we are just an hour and a half northeast of Atlanta.
So this year's conference is happening at our beautiful Special Collections Library in Athens on July 16th, 2026. This year the registration fee includes breakfast, coffee, and snacks. Unfortunately, lunch isn't provided, but we're just a few blocks away from downtown. And there's lots of food options nearby. The registration fee does include parking, which is very close to Special Collections. So with all those features, I'm sure you're itching to know where to register, and I'm happy to say that registration is open now. We're just charging $25 this year, and you can register here. Who will be presenting? Hopefully you. And again, presentation submissions are open this year as well. If you have questions, please come and speak to us. I listed our email addresses. We also have a wiki available on Code4Lib.org with all relevant information. And please ask us questions in the Code4Lib Southeast Slack channel. I know I sort of flew through a lot of those links, but I'll make sure to post all of that relevant information in the Slack channel as well. Thank you very much.
Are we okay with letting Andromeda slip in if she is fast and all that? Okay. I blame the notes I am given. I only am the reporter, so.
I'm clearly not on your notes.
Yeah. So how did you record it?
Like day 2 lightning talks, Yelton.
Okay.
Something like that.
It is good for people who are up here to remember what they titled their, talks.
Can you just search for Yelton?
What? Group 4, that one? No.
No, it has my name in it. It has lightning talks in it. Well, maybe I should go tomorrow.
We will make space for Andromeda tomorrow because we are having slight issues. So, next person is Rob Cartolano, International eBook Standards. And do you have slides? Which one?
Scroll to the top of that list.
Are you slides?
Yeah, they're in there. The folder you were just at.
I asked you to come up earlier for this exact reason. This is included in your time. What did you title it, please? Because I can probably find it faster than you.
Top of the list.
Yes.
You just had it open. It was in the Dropbox.
Hi there. I'm Kerry Gordon, and I am at this moment the live streaming committee. I've been doing the live streaming, working on it for most of the 18 years that I've been coming to these things, and I'm done. We need people to get involved. I'd like to have, hopefully, like 3 people who know all the secrets of getting us up. It's not that hard to do, but we need someone on site at every conference to make sure it happens. On Monday morning, we had a problem. I got here at 8 o'clock. We were supposed to start at 9:15. We started at 9:16. It was a miracle, and then I was totally out of my mind for the rest of the day. So I'm too old for this stuff. I really, really need some help. So if you're interested, come find me, and we'll give you the secret initiation. We'll probably do a training after the conference online and I'll walk you through the whole thing. It's not hard, but somebody has to do it.
Thank you, Kerry, the man who brought me coffee. So now we have interoperable ebook standards with Rob Cartolano. Let me just get this.
Thanks, and I just want to thank everybody from the organizing team for putting together Code4Lib this year. Hi, I'm Rob Cartolano. I'm from Columbia University Libraries. I'd like to talk about interoperable ebook standards. I know there's a lot of talk about AI these days, but I want to keep the attention on what we're trying to do to adopt interoperable ebook standards. There is an interoperable ebook standard statement that's out there at Library Futures. If you haven't seen it, or you'd like to have yourself or one of your leaders of your organization sign it, please go to that site to affirm the importance of interoperability and the shared standards that enable us to provide the best possible reading experience. So we know we have a lot of challenges with ebooks and certain digital formats because of a fragmented ebook publishing and aggregation landscape, proprietary technologies that are needlessly complicated, and continue today a lack of standardized metadata, formats, protocols, and APIs. So what we're trying to do here is to foster ease of discovery, ease of use, make it easier to buy or license, and make it accessible for every reader. And we can talk about accessibility much more, but we won't go there. Just as a very brief example of what we're talking about, here's just a web catalog viewer that our colleagues at Lyrasis run for us at Columbia. And we can see here work that Casalini Libri, one of our publishers who has the Tarosa book platform, sends to us the data as OPDS. And because it's an OPDS, we can go from this page to this page, which is a mobile app where the mobile app can look at the book directly with a view, make it very easy to find it and use the book, make it a better reading experience. Behind the scenes, we have something called OPDS, which not only has descriptive metadata, this is a JSON file, the OPDS format, but it also includes the rights attributes, direct link to digital objects, and the MIME type. So it's not just for supporting ebooks, but it's also used for audiobooks. It's also used for articles and journals. It could be used for more formats than just ebooks because of the MIME type. And in fact, some of the readers support audiobooks because that's a big part of the reading experience for public libraries. So I just want to talk about learning more. Really, if you want to learn more about what's going on, the open source work is happening at the Readium Foundation. Full disclosure, I'm a member of the Readium Foundation board. Those projects are there. They're up online. There's GitHubs for them. There's also work going on with open protocol work with OPDS. It's an evolving standard. If you would like to learn more about or get involved, please let me know. There are open readers, the Palace Project mobile app, which is developed and maintained by Lyrasis, again, open source. The EDR lab in Europe also has the Thorium desktop reader, which is really moving very well. EBSCO has adopted Thorium as their desktop reading platform. ProQuest supports OPDS. As I mentioned, Tarosa supports the OPDS format and also built a reader built on the Readium platform. There are over 100 mobile apps now built using the Readium software platform. Thank you. Again, sign that ebook standard statement. I put up a video with the Readium Foundation just recently, so if you want to watch a long form version of why I think this is so important for our community, you can watch that video. And if you'd like to learn more, you can contact me directly, rtc@columbia.edu. Thank you.
Next, we have Matt Connolly with Ali Oopel. Or Ali Oop, sorry, that was mistranscribed. Again, I only read what I am given.
Hi, everyone. Matt Connolly, Cornell University Library. And at Cornell, we've done an AI thing. This is an experiment. The question we had was, can we use AI to aid archivists in the exploration and characterization of extremely large collections of digital material? What's an extremely large collection? Just something that's too big for a human archivist to go through in a reasonable amount of time by hand. So our test collection has about 4 terabytes of data, 1 million files or so. It's a web scrape of the US Department of Labor websites from a number of years ago, so it's got text, HTML, PDFs, a whole bunch of different kinds of file formats, and we don't know too much about what's in there. So it's a good experimental collection for this. Some of the files look kind of like this. So, question 2, how do we process 4 terabytes of files using AI, really an LLM, and do it without spending any money? Yeah, maybe that's a silly question. So we go on to question 3. What if we can't do that? Is there something else we can do which is interesting with this collection? Well, we do have these file paths, and they're pretty structured. They're not URLs, but they're URL adjacent, since this is a web scrape. And so we thought, what if we just give these to the LLM and say, tell us what's important about these? So here's a first early pass at this. So tell us what's significant in this collection. It gives us a number of files. These aren't really the most important ones in the collection, but the reasoning is kind of interesting. So it tells us things like there's a focus on DPM. It tells us this is diesel particulate matter. And in this case, that's a useful thing to know. It's appropriate to this site, which is MSHA, that's the Mine Safety and Health Administration. And so it tells us something useful about the collection. So that's kind of interesting. This is more interesting. So Crandall Canyon ir.html, it tells us these are files related to a review of a mining accident. So I didn't know anything about Crandall Canyon, so I asked the LLM, what's this? What's this mining accident you're talking about? This is what it gave me back as an answer. So based on the sources, the file paths suggest the following. It gives me some reasoning. The sources list these files but do not contain the actual content. But this was a significant event involving a mine that led to fatalities in an independent review in 2007. And if you look up Crandall Canyon, this is absolutely correct. The Crandall Canyon mine is known for a really bad accident in 2007 with multiple fatalities. And again, this is not giving the LLM any content of the files themselves. These are just the file paths. So it's either figuring this out from its own knowledge base. It's not looking up things online either. It's not going out to Google. This was earlier than that. Or it's inferring this just from the file path that we give it. So this is pretty interesting. And so the next step, obviously, can we think of a catchy acronym for a project with a slightly awkward destination? Absolutely we can. So this is ALLEOOP, Assistive Large Language Evaluation of Overwhelming Piles. And even the cleaned up file list that we have is hundreds of megabytes in size. So to use it, we have to chunk it up, feed them to Gemini one at a time, trying to stay within Gemini's free tier so we don't have to pay anything, combine the results, and then use those combined results to build cool tools. So the tools we built so far are first an acronym explorer. So we asked Gemini, tell us all the acronyms that are in these file paths and define them for us. It gives us a nice list of things we can browse through and gives us definition, reasoning, confidence scores, references. I can't read the notes on here at all. I'm having to look over there. So we can browse through those. And then we've also started to work on an aboutness system. So we say, look at these file paths, just tell us what they're about, give us the major themes that are in here, some of the top domains that appear. And so far, they're rough results, but they're promising, and they look like they might actually be useful for helping archivists to discover and explore what's in the collection and maybe surface some of the major things to look at in more detail. So next steps, the free tier is gone pretty much from Gemini, so we need to figure out if we can do this with local models or find some money to pay somebody else to process it for us and then develop more additional cool tools. So I want to thank the other people who have worked on this at Cornell with me. We've got a team of 6 great people on this. And yeah, if you have thoughts about this approach or if you have money to give us, please come talk to me. I'm wearing a colorful shirt. I stand out maybe. So yeah, thanks. That's all I got.
We have Clark. I'm not even going to try. I feel like I should know this with AI, copyright, and authorship.
All right. Hey, everyone. So this is a condensed presentation from a longer one. The slides are right there. I'm not a lawyer. This landscape's rapidly shifting, so much of what I say could change. Tons of lawsuits against AI companies. If you're paying for AI, part of your money is going to their lawyers who are defending from all of these. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Copyright Office released a 3-part series. I'm going to discuss a little bit about that, and then I'll go into a few of the cases. So when it comes to artistic style, produce a novel in the style of George R.R. Martin. Copyright Office says that's not considered to be copyright infringement because you can't really isolate style from the underlying work. So, and many creative people kind of agree with that and say that that should not be subject of copyright protection. Courts are also finding along those lines as well. Human authorship. Right now, the Copyright Office is saying that copyright requires human authorship, therefore anything that's fully AI is not eligible for copyright protection, and if AI is used, authors are required to disclose what their contribution was. This is our artwork that's fully AI generated, but the artist kind of took bits and pieces and put it all together. Initially, the Copyright Office says it's not eligible, but the artist produced a time lapse. Copyright Office came back and said, yes, that copyright, there was sufficient human creativity in this, so protection was granted. This one, just yesterday, the Supreme Court declined to hear this case, which people on both sides were somewhat disappointed. It would be nice to have some guidance from the highest court as to whether copyright requires human authorship. This one's fully AI generated. And then on the opposite side, people who use AI in their creative work or develop these platforms also wanted some guidance, but we're not going to get it from the Supreme Court for now. Prompting. Prompts alone do not provide sufficient human control. No matter how many prompts you do, the Copyright Office says it's like rolling a dice. You know, you don't know what you're going to get back. So because of that, copyright protection is not granted purely for prompts. Okay, AI implicates a number of author rights. They make tons and tons of copies of these works. They store them all over the place. They train models on them. They strip them of copyright. Key question, are the models derivative works or are they transformative? That's what the courts are really looking into. If AI produces copyrighted content verbatim, courts are generally finding, yeah, that's copyright infringement. There's no consensus on whether using works to train AI is fair use. Courts are really weighing this question, and probably in the middle of this year, we'll find the big OpenAI case will be heard, and we may have some guidance then. Go into some of these cases. So Meta was sued. The courts found that the training the model was fair use. So the transformative purpose of training this LLM outweighed the fact that they copied all these books, and the only thing that they're moving forward with is when Meta downloaded all these pirated books, when they seeded those torrents, was that infringement? Unbelievable. That's the only kind of question that they're going to be looking into. The big Anthropic case, the courts also found that it was fair use. The judge said that's spectacularly fair use. Even though the full text of these books was copied, the only thing that they moved forward against Anthropic with was that they used pirated books in training their data set. That's where that big settlement came out, and there was a deadline, if you were an author, that you could get money from them. And then, like I said, Authors Guild versus OpenAI. That's also got the New York Times case, which said that if AI says that the New York Times said this and we didn't, that damages our reputation. So that's a kind of different wrinkle in it. And so, yeah, it's an interesting landscape, and who knows what's going to happen. Thanks.
Thank you on that. Hey, we had late-breaking news on that. We have our last person, Richard Higgins, and wait, we're out of ORCID API keys. Sounds horrible.
Thank you. Richard Higgins, Indiana University Libraries, based in Bloomington. I'm a software engineer in library technologies. This is one of those projects that's like like 10% of my time or 20% of my time. And I'm just going to start with a little narrative of our, how we ramped up with ORCID and kind of where we're headed. It's really a plug for an open source product or solution that is built by Internet 2's In Common. And we'll get there. So 2017, 2018, we joined as a member, which means we can implement an API to ORCID in our applications like journals, OJS, and DSpace, and we can push or write to the individual's ORCID record that they've put something in there. So the membership key gives us both that read access and the write access. And we get 5 API keys as members. I don't know if other people have other experiences elsewhere with ORCID membership, but 5 API keys for that membership. And so we went along with this for a while. There's some good pickup, some attention, but it's just sort of languishes, and we don't have that much engagement with ORCID. Some of the sciences start to freak out about needing ORCID IDs. Everybody knows what an ORCID ID is, right? It's a researcher PID. Sorry about that. So recently, IU Indianapolis, or what was known as IUPUI, and IU Bloomington have merged. They also now have a shared email domain, or we're supposed to have all our websites on this single domain, which will probably take many, many years to get to iu.edu. So now we're going to merge our ORCID membership as well, and still only have 5 membership API keys. And I was just throwing this together last night. We're talking about a couple of DSpace instances, at least 3 journal instances. We've got data repos on both campuses. We need a membership API for each of these if they're going to be able to do the membership process of being able to write what people have posted to the repo or to a journal site and be able to read. And so actually we got the attention of Central IT and identity management. And so this project that we've begun to work on was hatched. And we're also, people are talking about RIM systems, Research Information Management Systems. We have one underway right now, Central IT. So, in common, we use everything, I think, in our identity management in Central IT. Federated Shibboleth, all of our certificates for websites and all of that are from In Common. Eduroam is an In Common product. Grouper for making identity groups. And they have this product called Co-Manage Registry, or Co-Manage, which is kind of a sidecar to federated identity. And it's used by labs, maybe a lab that's affiliated with a university, but it needs kind of a separate way to integrate with SSO, or single sign-in. And it has all these kinds of plugins for use cases, and they recently built it out last year for the ORCID membership API. So what this means is that we can have a user authenticate with Co-Manage, and then all of our apps on campus can then communicate with Co-Manage and get access to an individual's ORCID. So we're basically centralizing ORCID authentication for the campus. So at one, when we're visualizing this before, we've got all these different apps with their singular API keys. The project we're working on now is to have one place where all faculty and staff can authenticate and co-manage, and then every one of our apps, instead of contacting and getting authentication through ORCID, will get that access token from co-manage and then be able to read and write to ORCID. And the role of libraries is hopefully going to shrink. But we have the ORCID expertise. I've been doing a lot of the testing on the co-manage system and have built a proof of concept integration that hopefully will proliferate throughout our Central IT. I'm out of time. Thank you. Love Code4Lib.
as a proud Kentuckian, native Kentuckian, though, I have to go, Hoosier. Sorry. If you're not from the areas, you just don't understand. So we're almost at lunch, but you have to wait for just a few last pre-lunch announcements. So if you're an if you're an in-person speaker giving a talk this afternoon, make sure your slides are available and come up to the podium during the lunch break. Be sure to also note the file name you submitted your talk, your slides under. It's also a great time to sign up for lightning talks. Also fill in the breakout sessions if there are any opportunities in there. And so now just remember this space will remain open and unsecured. So you probably want to take your things with you. And also lunch will be served in the Hamilton room just like yesterday. But I suspect that they might actually hide the desserts over like here like they did before. Or they might try to surprise us because they already know what we know. So good luck with that. Enjoy lunch, everyone.